NFLMAX Radio live tonight, Tuesday, September 18th, and week 2 is officially in the books as we're moving on, looking ahead towards week 3. And we got a fun show for you guys tonight. As always, Ewok Juggernauts here with the hot pineapples. Nick, what's up, buddy?
Not much. What's going on? It was a fun week of football and some big news coming down the pipeline with your boy Josh Gordon being shipped off to the Patriots. So let's just jump right in. I'm sure you have a lot to say about this.
We'll jump right in, and I've got some stuff to say. Josh Gordon. Breaking news. It happened Monday, and, just incredible news 24 hours ago. So we're going to talk tonight, just for a few minutes, about Josh Gordon. Okay, Josh freaking Gordon. The roller coaster that is Josh Gordon. We talked about it before, about the roller coaster. But let's talk specifically about the ride. And we'll just call it the ride, because that's what is Josh Gordon. It's like nothing I've ever seen in my life. I've been playing fantasy football for over 20 years. I've been watching the NFL my whole life. And there's nothing like the Josh Gordon experience. The highs and the lows. I mean, the highs are as high as you can go. 1,600 yards worth of highs in one season. And the lows are low. The lows are, no NFL games for 2 straight years, 2015, 2016. We didn't see anything out of Josh Gordon, and suspension after suspension from Josh Gordon. And that's the lows of the low. You can't get any lower than not playing football. But you've got to endure the lows of the lows if you want to truly appreciate the highs of highs. And for anybody out there listening who has Josh Gordon or who drafted Josh Gordon his rookie year and got to experience that 2013 season, that magical ride that is in the NFL record books, and nobody can take that away from Josh Gordon. I have a question for you guys. For the people who drafted Josh Gordon. And here it is. Where were you when the lows were low? Where were you when this guy was banished from the NFL? Stephen A. Smith has endless amounts of rants on Josh Gordon. The major media crucified him. Just a total outcast. So, for anybody who has Josh Gordon, I'm asking you that question. And, another thing too, if you had Josh Gordon on your roster, you know that everybody in your league has been dying for you to cut Josh Gordon. They've been waiting for you to cut Josh Gordon. And they're just salivating, waiting for you to push the button. But if you didn't, you've been ridiculed, you've been made fun of, and let's face it, you have wasted a roster spot for 5 long years. Now, I'm one of them, okay? I drafted Josh Gordon as a rookie. I've had him on my team for 8 years now, and 7 years. And I wasted a roster spot for 5 long years. But you know what? At the end of the day, dreams really do come true. And the faithful will be rewarded If you are a Josh Gordon owner in Dynasty, it is time to get up, get excited. You've been waiting for this for 5 years. Josh Gordon is happening in 2018. If you still have Josh Gordon on your roster right now, and you've been through all of this, the suspensions, not playing games, the suspensions on top of the suspensions, ladies and gentlemen, you're about to get paid. You are about to embark on a journey that will blow your mind, and it's going to be glorious. It's going to be magnificent because Josh freaking Gordon is on the New England Patriots, and Tom Brady is going to be throwing this guy the football on Sundays. So I'll get off my soapbox, but I just wanted to say that for everybody out there that has held on to Josh Gordon for all these years, we are going to celebrate together at the end of the season, and we'll have a house party, La Festival. We will dance through the night, and we will dance until the morning. But at the end of the season, it will have paid off, and the Josh Gordon truthers will rise hand in hand with Josh Gordon. And that's all I got to say.
You're out of your mind. Truly out of your mind. I'll be the downer here. I have a completely different take. I look at the fact that the Patriots only had to trade a 5th rounder. Like, you know that the Browns, if they had a chance, would have shipped him to the Cowboys or any other NFC team if presented with the opportunity. So it tells me that the Patriots paid, and you know the Browns don't want to help the Patriots. The Patriots paid significantly more than anyone else is willing to pay. And that significant payment was a conditional 5th round pick.
Well, they have a long history of trading with each other for years now. So you look back, and the Browns and Pats have made a lot of trades.
They would get tortured if Josh Gordon goes to New England, becomes Josh Gordon of old, and New England wins another Super Bowl.
But that's the Browns, and that's what the Browns do. I mean, they were going to cut this guy on Sunday night, and then word broke, and they must have got some crazy feedback, and then they changed the story, and they said they're going to trade him on Monday. But, I mean, are you really surprised?
No, I'm not. The ineptitude of the front office is incredible. But even then, 5th round conditional pick, the offense is historically hard to pick up. Like, it's going to be an interesting, I'm not surefire that it's going to work out for you. I think if you're going to buy, you missed your window. I bought 1 share of Josh Gordon the other night. As soon as the news broke, I bought for a second. And then the next day when the news broke that he was being traded to the Patriots, I traded him for a 1st. I think if you're paying a 1st for him, which is the going rate right now because he's going to the Patriots and everyone's excited, right? So that's the going rate. You have to understand that there is a huge risk. And that huge risk is that the only capital the Patriots have tied up in him is a conditional 5th round pick. That's it. This isn't the Browns anymore, who have sat with Josh Gordon through 6-7 years of turmoil, waiting for this moment for him to come back. They waited, he came back, and they're still parting ways with him. The only stock that the Patriots have in Josh Gordon is a conditional 5th round pick. Know that if you are trading for Josh Gordon at this stage in the game, you missed your window to buy low. You missed 8 windows to buy low. So shame on you. And if you're buying him at this point for anything more than a 2nd round pick, I totally disagree with the process. But with that being said, if you've held on to him, by all means, ride the ship into the ground, because what could happen could be incredible. Yeah.
And the ship's going to either sink or it's going to sail off into the sunset. But, you know, the Browns front office, it's pretty obvious if you watched Hard Knocks. There's a great divide. Hugh Jackson and, you know, Dorsey. I think that the front office has just had it with Josh Gordon, and Jackson is wanted to hold on to him because his job's at risk, and Gordon can do nothing but help Jackson. But I think the front office was just pretty much done with him. He didn't even show up until the last preseason game. I think at that point they were just like looking to get rid of him. And then, here we are, week 2, and he's gone. But that, we'll see. It's going to play out. And I mean, if you're a Josh Gordon truther, you cannot make this up. I mean, this script is absolutely insane.
It's wild.
It's crazy. Wild. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. Okay, so let's move ahead here to the standout performances for week 2. And if we're going to go by positions, at the quarterback position, the obvious guy here who, week 1, Patrick Mahomes lit the world on fire. But week 2, Patrick Mahomes lit the universe on fire. I mean, the number 1 quarterback in week 2 with 55 points in 23 of 28 for 326 yards, 6 touchdowns with no interceptions. I believe he tied Manning's record for the first 2 games with touchdowns and no interceptions on the season. I mean, this guy is blowing the roof off of the NFL. Thoughts on Patrick Mahomes here?
Yeah, he looks good. And I mean, what you're seeing is, the typical Andy Reid genius with these young quarterbacks is he's scheming these receivers open. He's giving Mahomes minimal progressions to go through. And I mean, he's scheming everything to his strengths. And you're seeing some of those touchdowns around like little shovel passes. So, they're making ways for, Mahomes' stats to maybe look a little bit better. Should he ever throw 6 touchdowns in a game with only 280 yards now? But I mean, regardless, the kid's playing at a veteran level. Like, he doesn't look like this is essentially his rookie year. I mean, he didn't get much playing time last year. So this is essentially his rookie year. And that was my argument against buying him in dynasty startups this year. It was like, we were buying him at his upside. Well, it looks like I was wrong again on another quarterback, similar to Deshaun last year. It looks like his upside is immense. I do think we may see a slight regression back to earth, at least in week 3, because Pittsburgh's defense, I mean, it was number 2 in week 1 for air yards, and average depth of the target. And then this week, obviously, they just get torched again. So their secondary is decimated. You might see a slight regression back to the norm. 55 points is not and should not be an expectation from Mahomes, but it certainly is within the realm of possibilities as we see. May it ever happen again? I'm going to err on the side of no. Will he ever throw 6 touchdowns again? But can you see a couple 40-point games pop up from him? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the game script for Kansas City is going to be phenomenal for Patrick Mahomes because he's playing on a team where right now they're the worst defense in the NFL. And that is a script that is just going to be incredible for the season because they're going to be giving up points and they're going to be scoring points back and forth. I mean, it's just going to be amazing. The Steelers are ranked the 28th worst defense in the league. So, that bodes well for his week 2 performance. But just looking at the schedule here, Patrick Mahomes, I would temper expectations because look, I mean, he's got to face Denver twice. He's got to face Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Cleveland, who in my mind is a top 5 defense, and then the Rams. So it's going to be a tough go for him throughout the season, but he lit him up this week, and I think he's most likely, a QB1 for the rest of the way. So.
Yeah, for sure. He's a talented player, and it's going to be fun to watch him grow, see what he can do against some of those stout defenses, like the Jaguars, like the Rams. Those are going to be the tellers. How does he attack a secondary who isn't decimated and can lock down man-to-man, and all of a sudden you free up another player in the box coming on a blitz. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Well, on the flip side, some bad performances at the quarterback position. The bad and the ugly. Sam Bradford, can we just remove the R from Bradford's name and call this guy who he really is. And he's bad. I mean, Sam Bradford looked absolutely atrocious on Sunday. Granted, playing against the Rams, who are a solid top 5 defense, but 17 of 27 for 90 yards and an interception. He looked so lost. And, he only threw for 90 yards, and most of those 90 yards came in the fourth quarter in garbage time. Sam Bradford, can we just move on and just move to the Josh Rosen era and just get this thing started? Because he's killing everybody in the offense. David Johnson can't run the ball. Larry Fitzgerald, 20 yards. The bright spot for me was your boy, Kirk. He had 4 receptions for 27 yards and actually looked good. But aside from that, Sam Bradford, he's got to go.
Yeah, no, I agree. He looks awful. And I don't think there's much more to say about that. He's not fantasy viable. He's at this point just a roster clogger. You can go ahead and cut him. And you could just stream off the waivers. There's guys who will still be floating out there who might give you a functional week, but under no circumstances should you be starting Bradford. So if you're never going to put him in your starting lineup with confidence, why keep him on your roster?
Yeah, and they've got to move to Josh Rosen. They've just got to do it.
Yep.
Any other standout performances that were bad for you?
Yeah, not necessarily bad, but I did want to just quickly touch on 2 guys. Russell Wilson looks uncomfortable moving around the pocket. He's looking to do too much. From the snap, he's looking to get out of that pocket and extend the play rather than sitting and designing. And this part of this falls on the offensive coordinator. Part falls on Pete Carroll. They've got to figure out how to get the ball out of his hands quick because they're going to get him killed. And it's not necessarily all on Russ, but he just looks uncomfortable because the line is so bad. There's pressure in his face constantly. He can't step up in the pocket. He can't do anything. So what's his first thought? I get the ball. If I get out of this pocket, I can at least move and give myself a couple yards of wiggle room on my own. And so I'm not selling him by any stretch of the imagination. He's still a top 3 dynasty quarterback for me. He's so super talented, but he's definitely a hold. Selling now, you would get nothing. But if you want to buy, just know this year probably won't be the year that he gives you any valuable return. And then the last one is luck. I always said this in a couple of our earlier podcasts is people thought this injury was binary. Either he was done and never playing again, or he was coming back and he was going to be the old Andrew Luck. We're not seeing that. The air yards per attempt, the depth of target is 5 yards depth of target right now. That's awful. Wow. It's atrocious. 0 arm strength. He's willing it because of his intellect. I mean, he is other than Tom Brady, the smartest quarterback, and Rodgers, obviously, but Rodgers is a lot of talent too. He makes some questionable plays that he can make sometimes. But from an intellect standpoint, no question in my mind, Andrew Luck is a top 3 quarterback, and he's willing his production right now. And they're scheming for it. They're just giving him quick targets, but his arm just looks so weak.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it incredible how both the Colts and the Seahawks have 2 franchise quarterbacks, and they're just leaving them out to die with no offensive line? It's so horrible, and it's so sad because both of these guys are, incredible quarterbacks and they're franchise guys. And it just makes me really question both organizations to leave these guys out to dry like the way they have.
Yeah.
It's really sad. But we've got to move on. So we're going to move on to running back. And, the big standout for me, Christian McCaffrey, 15 targets on Sunday against the Falcons. It's incredible. 14 receptions for 102 yards. And he still had 4 yards per carry, 37 yards on 8 attempts. Is this guy who we thought he was as a prospect?
Yeah, definitely. And, you can throw CT in that mix even. You're just talking about this wave of running backs who's going to break the entire fantasy system when it comes to PPR because these guys are getting 14, 13 receptions a game. And you even look in Detroit, Theo Riddick had 9 receptions and Kerryon had 5, 14 receptions. It's crazy. These running backs are getting these receptions. It's insane. And McCaffrey very clearly still has some insufficiencies between the tackles. There's still issues with him.
Are you hearing that call?
Yeah, I'm hearing that.
Hold on a second. NFLMAX Radio.
That's right, bro. What are you hanging up on me because you don't want the content? Is that what it is? You want to censor the Benjamins? Well, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm going to tell you this at 9:42 on Tuesday night. I'm challenging the Ewok Juggernauts in week 3 for kicking me off.
Oh, baby.
I'm challenging the Ewok Juggernauts this week, week 3, first challenge. It's you, baby. Bring it.
I love it.
Let's do it, brother. Let's do it.
Right, and you're going down, and I'll see you on the podcast on Tuesday. You're going down. You want to shut me off? You want to turn this off? You want to turn the lights off on the Benjamins? I'm coming for you. Juggernauts, Suckerlots, I'm coming for you. Over.
Wow. The Benjamins are on fire here.
That's it. The Max is with me. No more trades. And the Jugs go down. Week 3, you saw it. You heard it here first on Max Radio. Good night.
Boom. Damn, the Benjamins challenging the Ewok Juggernauts. Wow. Challenge accepted. If it's official, you could do it on Wednesday morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. But I will accept that challenge. Absolutely. I don't know where to go with that.
I love it. I love the confidence.
Yeah, the Benjamins are absolutely on fire tonight. Text messages are coming in. We can't.
I know. I can hear that too.
It's now, you know, 9:45. We started this podcast over an hour ago. We still can't get through the NFL stuff. I got a lot of editing to do. So the Benjamins are on fire and making their voice heard on NFLMAX Radio. And, you know, that's just a little encouragement for you guys out there listening. You two can be a part of the show and call in anytime, and we'll get you on.
Yeah, we were talking about McCaffrey and, you know, just is he who we thought he was? And there's still clearly some inefficiencies in his game between the tackles. But, I mean, he's everything that I hoped that Kalen Ballage would be when I drafted him this year. And a lot of my drafts in the second round he's a cheat code. I mean, you can put him in there and you know you're getting 15 points a game out of him because of his receptions.
At least.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, I've heard it on a couple pods and I 100% agree. A lot of the leagues I'm in move to the scoring system where it's just a tiered. It's like half point running back, full point wide receiver, and then 1.5 per reception for tight end because it tiers. Because these guys, man, they're just CT and McCaffrey, you know, despite their potential longevity issues due to size, they're a cheat code while they're in the game.
Yeah, and this is where the NFL's going, unfortunately. Yeah. You know, I'm old school back in the days of Dane Tomlinson, Terrell Davis, and Barry Sanders. But, you know, this is where we're going in the NFL. And, you know, he's not the only one. There's a whole bunch. Saquon Barkley, 16 targets. You know, if you're not a Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver, Saquon Barkley led the NFL in week 2 in targets, 14 receptions, 80 yards. And, you know, he can't help it. The offensive line's terrible, 2.5 yards a carry. But he did his damage in the air. And it's just a sign of things to come for Barkley. If they can fix that O-line and get this team moving, the Giants have weapons, but Eli Manning is just god-awful. And that offensive line is looking just like the Buffalo Bills. So, you know, thoughts on Barkley this week?
Yeah, I mean, he's good. He's involved in pretty much, it felt like every touch. You know, being a Cowboys game, I watched that whole thing live, and it felt like every single play was touching the ball in some form or fashion, whether it was as a reception or a carry. I mean, he's going to be super talented. There's no question about it. I hate that we have to see him all this time. I think he's a better running back than Zeke. I think he's got more explosion. He's got more talent. The Cowboys could not tackle him with the first guy. It was awful. It was just atrocious to watch. And they're not the best tackling team, so maybe not the best example, but just shows you what his ability to break that tackle. And that's something that just so needed in today's NFL was McCaffrey wasn't doing last year, but is starting to do this year, and you're starting to see the difference in his production. So,
yeah. And on the flip side, standout bad performances. There was a bunch this week. Peyton Barber disappointed, Dion Lewis, Derrick Henry. 18 carries, 56 yards. What's going on with Derrick Henry? David Johnson, 13 rushes for 48 yards. But one standout for me, Alvin Kamara, 13 carries, 46 yards.
No.
Absolutely nothing doing on the ground. I know he had 13 targets. 6 targets. I was looking at Mike Thomas. And he's always a weapon in the air. But, we talked about this last week, pumping the brakes on Kamara and Evan Ingram. God, Benji's got my mind just all messed up right now. Mark Ingram coming back in a couple weeks to take some carries away from Kamara. What do you think with this 13 carries, 46 yards?
I think it was bound to happen. I was fading him in DFS every week last year. And I did it again this week. I was like, you know what? No, I'm not playing him. He's got to regress back to the mean eventually, but he's just been so hyper efficient. It's like you can't come to expect those games every game, but that's what he was producing every game. And so it was just crazy production, crazy efficiency. And, it's an interesting development. I don't think he's ever been as strong between the tackles as he was showing. I think a lot of what he was doing was manufactured by spreading the offense around the field. They had a tough time moving the ball through the air this week. And I think that what you saw as a result was, stacked boxes and not as much room to operate. Yeah,
I agree. So, we'll see what happens in a couple weeks. Any other running backs you want to touch on?
Yeah, I just want to roll through a couple buys that I have on my list, just because I think running back position to buy low is some of the most important, because someone can break and make your season. Number one is Drake. He's seeing close to 80% of the snaps. I thought he was really shaky coming into the year, but that's a high percentage workload. That's almost elite level. You're talking 80% to 85+% is elite workload. That's what the Gurley gets. That's what Zeke gets. That's what DJ will get. All those backs in those elite zones Lev was getting, and now James Conner. Those types of percentages of snaps just yield production. So you're locking in that workload with Drake. Huge boost to his value. How long it's going to last, who knows? But for this year, I'm certainly inquiring, because his price is still relatively low. The general consensus is that he could still be a little shaky, but Balaj has done nothing, and Gore, being Gore, you never know when he can rise from the ashes. But I just don't see it happening this year unless Drake goes down. Eckler, super efficient. He's optimizing his touches. He's got a role. He's playing flanker on the field, even when Gordon's on the field. The only downside with him is he likely wouldn't get the role if Gordon went down. But the good thing is he's got a role regardless of whether Gordon's healthy or not. So he's fantasy viable on his own. And then the last I want to touch on as buy opportunity, if you're playing in other leagues, obviously outside of the max, I'm buying the rookie running backs. Like, this is your last shot to buy some of them. Carry-on's clearly coming for that job. Blunt's nothing more than a 2-yard banger. Carry-on's clearly the best back in that field, and I don't even think Riddick will cut into his work that much. He was in a limited role this week, still had 5 receptions out of the backfield. He's an excellent pass catcher. He's an excellent pass protector, and he's a good interior runner. So Carry-on, last chance to buy him. Go get him now. Chubb, last chance to buy. He's been the most efficient running back in limited touches. I don't think Hyde is helping that offense as much as they thought he would. Hyde and Tyrod are really holding them back, and I think we're going to see Baker and Chubb sooner rather than later. Penny, he got all the snaps when the game was on the line at the end. I know Carroll came out and said Carson was gassed, but my question is, from what? He had 6 carries. So I'm not buying that narrative. Penny got to work at the end when it mattered. They trusted him in pass protection coming from behind. And then Sony Michel, you'll see Burkhead starting to fall out of favor. His snaps have decreased, and White is too big a part of that plan for them to run him inside. They're not going to bang him up. They're not going to risk getting him hurt. He plays too big of a defined role. So you're going to start to see Michel inch closer and closer to a true 50-50, and then I think ultimately take that role over. And then Freeman's off to a slow start as the starter in Denver, but I don't foresee Lindsey being anything more than falling into a true satellite role. So that brings me to say Lindsey is a sell right now. If you can get, an upper tier second round pick, I'm taking that from Lindsey all day and I'm moving on.
I'm going to go the other way with Lindsey. We just talked about satellite backs pretty much breaking the game, a la McCaffrey's and Danny Woodhead of old, but I was not impressed with Royce Freeman the first couple of weeks. I know you said he started slow, but I'm looking at the carries here. Lindsey had 14 carries for 100 yards, and he was one of only 3 running backs in the NFL to rush for 100 yards in week 2. Nobody else did it. They love the kid. We talked about that last week, but he looks sharp, man. And I'm not saying he can ever be the lead dog, but in a world that we live in now where
you don't have to be.
You don't have to be. And if he's going to get 14 attempts a day, Sundays, 14 carries on Sunday, and get another 8 targets in the passing game.
Well, that's my big thing is I don't think those 14 carries are sustainable. Like, I think you're looking at him falling back into a role that's more like 8 to 10 carries, and then you're going to probably get six receptions out of him. So you're talking about a 16 to 18 touch workload, and that's probably the ceiling. Like, you're capping your workload there. Whereas if you can pivot to a guy like Drake, go Lindsey and a second round pick and pivot to a guy like Drake, you're locking in an 85%, workload. I think that makes sense to me. And I've seen deals crafted in that style, just looking through the trade finder. And, that would make sense to me. I would sell high. His upside is kind of capped. I do agree the satellite back is the way of the future, but I don't see him getting on the field for 13 receptions. It's just not in the Broncos' DNA.
Yeah, we'll see. He's a hold for me. I'm not going to sell yet. It's way too early in the game, but I hear what you're saying. So let's move on to wide receivers for week 2. And, one of the guys here, one of my guys, Brandon Cooks, who in the offseason, a lot of people were suspicious on what his role was going to be. Was he going to play the Watkins role? Was he going, can he be a wide receiver one in that offense? But they used him all over the place. 7 catches, 159 yards. And, also compliments to Woods too. Woods looked really good. I was very impressed with Robert Woods going up and getting those 50-50 balls, 6 catches for 81 yards. And, the Rams are just going to cruise and steamroll through teams. Jared Goff is not one of my favorite quarterbacks, but sitting back there with those guys as weapons, it's just going to look easy for him. So Cook stood out for me purely because his role was suspect, but I think we know now he's going to be an integral part of the offense. Anybody for you that stood out?
Yeah. Listen, I'm just going to touch on that quick. If you're breaking a tie in any direction, always pick a Rams wide receiver, and it doesn't matter which one. They're all viable. Cooks, Woods, and Kupp, they're all viable. Cooks has been traded for several. And you never want to see guys being traded all around to different teams, but when you're traded for a first-round pick, that lets you know how the NFL feels about you. Cooks is a legitimate wide receiver one, no matter where he goes, and they're going to utilize him like that. So if you're ever in a bind, lineup decision-wise, always break ties with the Rams. A couple guys that stood out to me, Funchess, he's got locked in volume now. It's a high floor. He'll see at least 8 to 10 targets at least a game. And it's limited upside, but, he can still be had for relatively cheap for that type of volume. Another guy also that I'm looking at is Fuller. Obviously, I have a huge man crush on Fuller, but he's doing Fuller things, and Nuke commands that double team. And Fuller has, no doubt about it, elite separation skills. He can separate himself at will. And if he can, and he gets the ball in his hands, he's got legit 4.28 speed. And if, you're questioning how fast that is, you think about some of the guys that blow the top off defenses year after year. You're thinking Deshaun and John Brown. John Brown came in at a 4.34 and Deshaun came in at a 4.35 at their combines, his same age. That's not even taking into account their speed now. So you're thinking about, Will Fuller and what he can do to get over the top. This dude has legit 4.28 speed, and he can blow the top off a defense.
Yeah. I agree. And he's this, Watson loves him.
It's crazy. I mean, and how could you not when Nuke is getting double covered and you got a guy who can separate it well? He's running all over the field with, 3 to 5 feet of space between him and the closest defender.
Yeah. And look at the difference between week 1 with Watson without Fuller and week 2 with Fuller in the game. It's just night and day. So yeah, he's going to be an integral part of that offense and pushing wide receiver 1 upside there. Quincy Enunwa, we talked about him last week. We were wondering if we're going to see another 10-target performance, and lo and behold, we did. 11 targets, 7 receptions, 92 yards. It's very interesting. For me, he's a solid wide receiver 2 right now, but if he's going to get these targets like we talked about last week, he's going to push that floor for possible low-end wide receiver 1 numbers. Anybody else here?
I mean, I'm starting to buy into Enunwa a little bit. I still think Pryor is going to come on a little bit. He's still developing within that system. I think from a physical standpoint, he's the most gifted. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But I am starting to buy into Enunwa there for that locked and loaded kind of workload. 2 guys that I'm last chance buying. Not last chance because I don't think they're going to break out right now, but 2 guys that I'm targeting in several of my leagues who aren't necessarily at the forefront of thoughts or stuck out this week. Number 1 is John Ross. We haven't seen it yet, but I don't believe in Tyler Boyd. I think that's all hype. Let him get blown up, and then you sneak in and buy the 3rd wide receiver, John Ross, on the low. The offense is efficient. It's an improved offensive line. Dalton's spreading the ball around, and he needs someone to be that deep threat to pair with Green. So I think John Ross, you could see a big breakout, buy into the pedigree. And while people think he's the 3rd wide receiver, buy low, put the poker chip down on him. And if he fails, it's going to cost you no more than a second. So it's probably worth it at that point. And the other one is Traquan Smith. His snaps are rising. He was up to about 30. I think off the top of my head, I ran the snap chart. It was about 36 snaps for Traquan Smith. So he's rising in that offense. It's a potent offense. There's a great succession plan behind Breeze with Bridgewater. He has a bona fide number 1 in Michael Thomas, and all that does is take the pressure off him. There's no pressure on him to step in and be the number 1 in that offense. They already have a bona fide stud. Let him take the double coverage, and you run up and under the field. There's no expectations for you, and he's got a great profile. So,
yeah, and they can slowly phase Ted Ginn out there and slide Traquan in there. And that's, like you said, it's a nice dynamic duo. Michael Thomas and Traquan is very nice. A couple guys I'd like to buy, real cheap right now. Taiwan Taylor, 3 catches of 32 yards, nothing special, but like I said before, my bold prediction, I think he's going to be right at the Corey Davis. And Antonio Callaway, that one bomb, by Tyrod in the 4th quarter to bring the Browns back, man, he looked deadly on that one. 4
did have a big drop though. I mean,
he did.
It was a pretty up and down game outside the bomb.
It was, but
I'm
no
not
Josh
buying
Gordon
it yet. But the snaps were, through the roof. So if you're going to spend, I think Eric spent like a 4th round pick on him, and that's a 3rd round pick in general. When you're talking standard leagues, that's pretty good.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we wrap up the wide receiver position, a couple of sells here. Who do you got for wide receiver?
All right, so I got 3 guys on my list right now for guys that I'm actively trying to shop if I have them. Number 1's Demarius. He looks slow. He's aged poorly. Doesn't look like he has any rapport with Case Keenum. He's slow out of his breaks. And, the one thing that used to make him great was he could go up and come down with a contested catch almost at will. We saw it phase out with Des Bryant over the past couple years. When you lose that skill and you're slow, you essentially just become a glorified tight end. So that's, I think, where Demarius is at. It's sad. I thought he had another year. I thought he had another couple years, but it just doesn't look like it's going to come back. Couple ankle injuries, couple foot injuries. That stuff can linger and, deplete ability pretty quickly. Second guy is Keelan Cole. He's emerging, but you got to remember there's no draft capital in him. Nothing that's gonna have them show any loyalty. It's a clouded depth chart, and you had a great game from Bortles. Is that going to happen from Bortles again? That's not their typical game plan. So if I can sell Keelan Cole on the upswing, I'm going to do it. And the last one is maybe a little hot takey, but Sterling Shepard. He is the number 3 option in an inept offense. OBJ obviously ahead of him, and I think Evan Ingram is ahead of him in that passing hierarchy. I think he's the number 3 option. The offense looks atrocious, and he still has some name cachet. So in my opinion, cash out now, reset the clock, and see what you can get. If you can get a functional piece and what you paid for him, I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I actually go as far as to say he's the 4th option because Saquon, they're going to keep targeting him. So you got, OBJ, Ingram, Saquon, and then for me, it would be Sterling Shepard. Yeah, I'm selling him too. So that'll be it for wide receivers. Let's go ahead and move to tight end. So tight end.
Wasn't too much glaring here.
Yeah, I mean, the number 1 tight end for the week is Travis Kelce. And coming off a, absolute dud performance week 1 with, 1 reception. And he had me scared there with Mahomes. Wasn't sure if the rapport was there or not, but he bounced back and was the number 1 scoring tight end for week 2. But aside from the obvious Travis Kelce, any other tight ends on your list here?
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple buys, not necessarily guys who stood out, just some quick thoughts. Njoku's had a rough start to his career, dropping some balls. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. But I think he's going to see better days, and I think Tyrod's really limiting this offense in general. And then the other one that I'm looking at is Jordan Reed. You may be able to still buy relatively cheap, speaking of his upside because of the injury concerns. To me, he's worth the risk when he looks healthy like this. So
what about buy or sell Jesse James and that performance he put on week 2?
Selling all day. Not buying into that. Just don't see it being sustainable. It's nothing that I want any stock in. I lost in DFS because of it, and so that pisses me off even more. So yeah, I'm not buying that. I think I really thought he was going to take a step back with Vance McDonald coming back into the lineup, but I don't know if Vance needed another week to acclimate or what it was, but I'm just not buying Jesse James. I think that was all Chiefs secondary.
Yeah, again, the Chiefs defense is pretty bad. He only had 5 targets anyway, but he caught all 5 of them. $138 and a touch. So very impressive. But, if I could sell Jesse James now on that big game, I'm selling.
Yeah, I'm taking a third. I'm taking a third for Jesse James.
I'll take it and run with you.
Yeah.
So that's it for offense. We'll touch real quick on IDPs. And
can I add in one real quick?
Go for it.
Can I do a sell on a tight end?
Sure.
It's time to cut bait with 2 guys. Number 1 is Gerald Everett. He's not getting any time behind Tyler Higbee, which is a joke. I mean, that's crazy. If you can't beat out Tyler Higbee and you're an athletic freak, you're probably never going to be a factor. I know he's got some pedigree, but I would use that with your league mates. Just pump that up and sell him off for a minimal return. He's a roster clogger at this point. And the second one is Brate. Same thing. But Brate still has a little name cachet, but he's got decreasing snaps. He saw, when I ran the snap chart, only 14 this week with 0 targets. He's not worth a spot, especially in a league like ours in the max. You only got 40 roster spots with IDP players. Not worth that spot. If you've got him, even I would say in 25 rosters with just offense, he's not worth that roster spot.
Yeah. Why he has name cachet still is beyond me.
Yeah.
I mean, when they drafted Howard, you should have been selling right there.
Yep.
So that'll do it for tight ends. And we'll just touch on IDP real quick. The number 1 scoring IDP for week 2, Darius Leonard, linebacker in Indianapolis. This guy was all over the freaking field on Sunday, and 15 tackles solo, a sack, a forced fumble. I mean, 30 points. Incredible performance. I didn't even, I started him because, anybody out there who had Bobby Wagner, he was out this week. If you were lucky enough to have Leonard and slide him in there, man, what a performance. Did you see that game?
Oh man, he was everywhere. It was really fun to watch. And if you're a Colts fan, you got to be fired up because you have had an awful linebacker core for so long.
Finally, now they have somebody.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Any other IDPs you want to touch on?
Yeah, just real quick, if you're in any other IDP leagues outside of the max, because I already have him on my roster, but Kaiser White still listed as a safety, but he's actually playing linebacker role in San Diego. That's great value. I have him in pretty much every league that I'm in. Kaiser White, that's a cheat code if you get linebacker stats from a safety position. And then Jordan Poyer, if he's out there in another league of yours, he's the model of consistency. Seems about 6 to 8 tackles every week, no question in that Buffalo defense. And then quickly, just from a roster construction standpoint in Dynasty, and I'll use him as an example. If I were selling right now, I would be looking to get rid of Van Der Esch. He's running with the second team. He's not playing meaningful snaps. He plays a valuable role behind Lee, who has injury concerns, but it's more of like a real life value than a fantasy football value. If in my mind, if I spent a third on him, I'd try to get that pick back and clear the roster spot, and then use that pick again on someone who's more valuable next year, who's going to give me instant return. I'm not wasting that roster spot on a rookie linebacker who is returning zero value for me. There's so many linebackers out there that are worth that spot. You know, when you think about almost 3 linebackers on every team, that's 96 linebackers. At least 50 of those guys are viable. And you're sitting there taking a 0 every week for a rookie linebacker. Just makes no sense.
Well, I mean, if you want to groom him, I mean, Sean Lee's on his way out. Not sure how you feel about the long-term prognosis, but I loved his metrics.
See, I feel like you can find a viable linebacker coming out in the 3rd round pretty much every year. So I would rather turn the linebacker, get the pick back, reset the clock, and open up that roster spot for, you know, an upside running back or something like that, in my mind.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, that'll be it for the week 2 performances, stand out, the good, bad, and the ugly. And that'll pretty much wrap it up for tonight's podcast. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm ready for week 3. It's been a great first 2 weeks. Fantasy's kind of screwed me overall, but I'm expecting a bounce back. So,
yeah, that's the name of the game, man. And that'll be it for tonight's show. So just want to thank everybody out there for listening, everybody for watching. For the Hot Pineapples, this is the Ewok Juggernauts, NFLMAX Radio. Everybody one clap.
Have a good night.
And that's it.
Good show. We'll see how it comes in post, bro.
You were good. You were quiet for a whole 5 minutes while I ranted on Josh Gordon. Oh, everything in me. It took everything in me to get that out.
Hey, can you give me a second?
Oh, yeah, go.
I got a huge ass roach in my room.
Oh, man.
I gotta kill this mother. I hate roaches, dude. Give me a second.
Okay, baby, welcome. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear, bro.
Loud and clear, bro. So what do you want to do? This is the Benjamins, baby. We're back. Actually, we're never back, but we're here for the first time to refute fake news. Fake news on the Max last week. Fake news on the podcast last week. It's a bullcrap podcast. Boring podcast. We're here to shake it up a little bit.
I go like Rambo on these bitches.
So give us what you got, Dan. I mean, we got you.
Oh my God. I would listen to the first 5 minutes of last week's podcast. Did you play this? Did you listen to yourselves talk about this trade? Did you listen to yourselves talk about this Khalil Mack trade? Nick, did you hear your opinion on this trade, Nick?
I don't recall it, honestly.
You don't recall your opinion on this trade?
What was it?
So what was the trade?
That's what I'm talking about right there.
Oh, man. You got him? The trade was Jason Pierre-Paul.
Oh. With one? How many hands did you train? Sorry.
9 fingers.
Keep going.
Sammy Watkins.
Oh God. Okay.
And a 2019 second round pick.
Shit! I dropped my phone. It was such a bad trade. Go ahead. Keep going.
Check it. Sam?
Oh, you got him.
Oh, man, he's a dunzo. Sorry you ever walked into this house, buddy.
I mean, it's a great segue. The Benjamins owner, his name is Dan Roach.
Oh.
So it was JPP, Sammy Watkins, and a 2019 second round pick from Nacho Boys.
Oh God, who would want this? Who would want this? All right.
For Khalil Mack and a first round pick in 2019.
Oh, who's first round pick? Did you finish in the playoffs last year, Russ?
I believe the Ewok Juggernauts are Max Bowl champions.
So which pick do you have?
So just blowing you up right now? Because I can hear all of your messages.
Oh, you can really?
I can hear them coming through.
Nick, help me out here.
Uh-huh.
Can we agree that they're called the Nacho Boys because they spelled it wrong? if you spell your name wrong on the test, that's your name.
Nick. Sure. You want me to read?
No, I want you to look at the 2016 NFLMAX draft.
16 or 17, Dan? Now you're confusing the crap out of me.
I think the haterade is causing a little disruption in the connection.
I think so.
But we will still continue to be on live with the Benjamins.
If I get back, can you hear me, idiots?
Well, this connection is brought to you by...
Oh no.
Ralph's Ice?
No.
Who for 20 years
No.
has been an incredible...
Russ, were you a playoff team then?
I'm a playoff team every year.
You selected Melvin Gordon 3 overall, and right before you, at 2nd overall to the Ewok Juggernauts, went Todd Gurley.
Todd Gurley, holy crap. It's amazing how the Jugs, who are actually a pretty good team, draft first every year, right? Let's go to 2014, Nick.
But
wait,
hold
on, let me just make my point. No, we're not going to talk about the Jugs draft. We're just going to talk about what's going on here. So now what we have here is we have a trade, right, Nick?
Right.
In 2018, that includes a 2019 pick, right?
Right.
I know you don't know the goings on, but can you just tell me, like, who picked first in that draft?
Sure. 1st and 2nd overall was the Ewok Juggernauts.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And we, in classic Juggernaut fashion, they don't draft the best player first. They always draft the second best player first. And we know the lottery's fixed. We know. I mean, we've been there before. We've seen what goes on. There's no witnesses to this thing. It is like
that is such.
It is rogue fake news lottery. Holy crap! Can you believe this trade? Nick, break this down. Listen, the trade I heard last week was pretty good. The Jugs, it's stuck as deep lineman. This is a great trade. But other than that, Nick, do me a favor. Do I have time or no?
No, you got time. You can take as long as you want. Oh, he's gone.
He's gone.
Yeah, he signed off.
Well, I think we knew where that was going. Oof, what a fiasco. I'm pulling up my sheet.
That was exciting. He was very clearly drunk.
The haterade was running wild tonight on NFLMAX Radio.
I thought he was going to crap on Doo-Doo. That's why he told you that, so that you let him on.
Yeah, I know how that goes.